Hey guys, it's so nice to meet you. I just got elected to be the president of the United States of America. I'm so excited. I've always wanted that much power, it'd be awesome. I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make an order that says that no one can say anything bad about me. It's going to be so cool. Oh, hold on. I guess they're telling me that I'm not the only one in power in this country. That it's my power is actually shared between two other branches. There's, I guess, a judicial branch and a legislative branch, and so we all kind of have a mixture of the powers that. Are you serious? Really? Okay. Well, I guess yeah, it's a little different than I was thinking. But still, though, think about it this way: I could probably just do this stuff anyway, and who's going to stop me? So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to make that order. I'm going to say nobody can say anything bad about me, the president. It's going to be. Hold on, one more. Yeah, really. Okay. I guess what they're telling me is that if I were to go ahead and try to make that order, the Supreme Court would just declare it unconstitutional and that I'd be prevented from doing it. This isn't going to be as cool as I thought it was going to be. I guess I have some thinking to do. I'll probably see you guys later, but I got to go. Hey guys. I take it you guys just met Brad. He just got elected president, and I think is a little different than what he was expecting. So it is important for us to remember that the United States was built on a system that was trying to prevent one person from having a lot of power. So Brad is going to have to get used to the fact that he's not all powerful as president. In fact, and I think he mentioned it, but I'm just going to pull it up because it's part of our vocab, is this idea of separation of powers. And I don't have that term itself on the vocab. I'm going to make that the vocab for tomorrow. But for today, I don't want to do more than 3 vocab words. So I'm going to focus on the branches that shows how separation of powers works, okay? Separation of powers is a simple term. It just means that the power of the federal government is split up between different groups, right? So one group, we call them branches. One branch is called the legislative branch, who is responsible for making laws. We also know them as Congress. Another one is the judicial branch, which is responsible for interpreting the laws. So basically, if somebody sues somebody or if somebody's arrested, they go to court, right? And the judges have to decide whether or not the law was actually broken, so on and so forth. And then there's the executive branch, which is the branch in which the people carry out the laws. So have to sort of like take action. And that's like the president, and there's other members you'll see in our activity today that are involved, but the president would be the main one in the executive branch. And I forgot to mention above, the Supreme Court is the highest level of the judicial branch, but there are other courts that are also quite important as well. So that's your vocab. That's going to be the big focus of today's activity. I'm going to remind you guys that last class we talked about the Federalists and Anti-Federalists and how, remember they had that big clash. And one of the big things was that Anti-Federalists didn't support the Constitution because they thought the government made it too powerful, or the Constitution made the government too powerful. And the Federalists supported the Constitution, and they were like, listen, we do need some strength in the federal government, but also they said, we are doing things to keep it from getting too powerful. And the separation of powers was a big part of that. There's another thing called checks and balances that we're going to learn about more tomorrow, but that's that idea of like that example when Brad was talking, he mentioned how he was going to try to do something, and then the Supreme Court stepped in to stop him. That's checks and balances, is that each branch can stop the other branch from doing certain things. But we'll talk more about that tomorrow. But the big solution we saw was that Massachusetts in particular, one of the states, actually refused to ratify or pass the Constitution because there were a lot of anti-federalists. And that's what forced the Federalists to make a compromise and say, okay, we'll give you this Bill of Rights, which ensures individuals will have rights that the federal government cannot take away. as long as you pass the Constitution. And then they came to the agreement, and Massachusetts went ahead and passed the Constitution, knowing that there would be a Bill of Rights added to it. And so at that point, then, of course, the Constitution was passed and it became the reigning law of the land. And I'm just going to show you real quick. There are 4 parts of it. The first part is called the preamble, and it's just like an introduction that sort of sets out the sort of ideas that the United States cares about, and we've talked about a lot of those already. And then it lists the branches of government in the second one, which we're going to focus on today. The third one kind of talks about how the government will work, sort of like what powers the states get, what powers the federal government gets, how they will interact, other things like that, the fact that we can amend the Constitution, that means make changes, and how to do that, so on and so forth, just kind of a lot of that stuff. And then the last section is where the amendments go. So every time the Constitution is changed, it's called an amendment, and it's added to that section. And let's take a look at today's activity then. So today's activity is just focusing on that branches of government part. I want you guys to get used to what each thing is and what they can do. And so you can see here, it has the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. What I'm asking you to do is for each one, figure out what's their purpose, who are the people that are groups that are a part of it, and then what are some of the specific powers they have, okay? And I'm just gonna model a few of them for you, and I'll leave them on the document when I send it out to you guys, so you guys can see that model as you work. But the key here is it's taking your time to read through things closely and then to kind of summarize things in your own words, okay? So legislative branch, what is their purpose? So what I would do, everything for legislative branch is in tab 2. So I'm gonna do the whole legislative branch first if I were doing this assignment, because that's just quicker that way. So I'm gonna go to tab 2, and I'll tell you guys, normally their purpose is like really early on. You know, that's typically what you can look for. For whatever reason, in this one at the legislative branch, it's a little later on, but that's why you got to read through the whole thing. It's going to be really hard if you're not reading through the whole thing. So I've already read it, so I'm just going to pretend like I'm going back and I'm rereading it, and I'm still like not seeing anything about a purpose. And then I get to this paragraph, and it's a little tricky because they use a different term, but it does mean the same thing. It says, Article 1 is the longest of the Constitution. It lists the clearly stated powers of Congress. Remember, Congress is another word for legislative branch. Then it says the main function of Congress is to create and pass laws for the nation to follow. Okay, so function is another word for purpose, right? That's what their goal is. That's what they're supposed to do. So I'm just going to simplify that and put it in my own words. Instead of writing that full, I don't need 2 full sentences. I just need to tell you what the purpose is. So I'm just going to put to create and pass laws. Okay. Obviously, I'm not saying you have to change every word because those words were used, but I'm just saying you can't just like copy down 3 sentences word for word. You got to just simplify to the key points. So that's the legislative branch's purpose. And now purpose is different than the last box there, than powers, in that purpose is sort of like generally what they're supposed to do. When you get to powers, that's saying now what are the specific actions that they can take? And it just goes deeper, right? You can literally see right here, it says this is the main function of Congress. And then it goes on to tell its powers by getting into all these very specific things like borrowing money and all that kind of stuff. So that's the distinction you're looking for between purpose and powers, okay? I'm going to go to tab 3 because the next one I'm going to model for you guys comes from tab 3. And I will go back to the worksheet real quick. So for executive branch, let's say I want to look for who the members are, who is a part of it. Again, you'll notice here, I'm going to have to read through the whole thing to really figure out who all the members are. That's not always going to be the case, but you got to be careful and check. Because the first thing is I've already read it, but again, I'm pretending like I'm reading it again now. I'm reading. Actually, sorry, I only need to read the first sentence. I forgot. So the first part comes very quickly. It says the executive branch is headed by the president. Okay, so I'm going to stop. When you think you got something, go ahead and stop and put it down. Again, I'm not going to rewrite the sentence word for word. I'm going to just simplify it and put it in my own words-ish. So I put the president. Oh, that's purpose. I'm supposed to put that for members. But if I just stopped there, I wouldn't have all the answers I need because the president isn't the only person involved, right? So I've got to read the whole thing. So I keep going a little bit further down, a little bit further down, and then I come across, oh, the Constitution created only 2 positions in the executive branch. Okay, so it means it initially had 2 different positions. Okay, it said it created the president and the vice president. So I'm like, okay, I need to stop. I need to add vice president. But then I got to keep reading because I'm not done with the reading yet. And so as I'm reading more, I notice, oh, wait, it says here, over the years, more executive departments were added. These departments do the work of the government. Today, the executive branch includes 15 departments. Okay, well, I got to add some more to that. 15 departments, okay? And not all of them are going to have quite that many things to add to it. But again, just the point here is that you've got to read the whole thing to make sure you've got everything you need for each category, okay? And then I'll just model one more for the judicial branch. And this one, they did it a little bit more weirdly. Again, this will be, the powers of the other branches will be more clear when you guys do it. But again, I've read this, so let's just pretend I'm rereading it again. I'm reading everything. And then they don't say it very clearly, but when I get down to here, it says that it is mainly an appeals court. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to highlight all the way up to here. It is mainly an appeals court. People who lose a court case can appeal or try again at a higher court. A large number of cases are brought to the Supreme Court's attention. The justices must choose which cases they will hear. There are 9 judges or justices on the Supreme Court. The decisions of the Supreme Court are final. So I'm going to focus. All right, sorry, hold on. Let's actually, so this is good. This is why rereading is important, because the first time I went through that, I was going to say that was the answer that we should have. But I actually think, this is a better sense because the Supreme Court isn't the only part of the judicial branch. So I think this is a better place to look for what the judicial branch does. And so we look at and we see that the district courts hear cases involving federal laws. And then there's the Court of Appeals that basically hears cases that have already been settled, but then people are saying they're challenging that ruling and saying, I want the Court of Appeals to try that case, okay? And then technically the Supreme Court is like the ultimate Court of Appeals. If things keep going through and somebody challenges what the Court of Appeals says, then they become the final ruling. So that's a good thing that I reread that and got a better sense of kind of what I should be putting here. So I'm going to put here then that, in my own words again, just simplifying it, what did I learn? I learned that district courts hear cases about federal laws. Appeals courts hear cases about hear cases that have been challenged. And the Supreme Court, darn it, and the Supreme Court hears, let's see, all of those appeals might be the way of saying that. Let's try to get our wording right here. Let's say the Supreme Court is the final say on any appeals, okay? And guys, it's good for you to see, me doing that. I didn't plan that ahead of time. I actually, had thought that I had come up with what I thought would be the best answer. And then I looked at it again and realized, that's not really correct. And I reworked a little bit, spent a little bit of time making sure I got my ideas correct and my wording correct. So everybody, does that. So it doesn't come immediately for anybody. It's going to take work to really get your ideas right. So sometimes it's going to take rereading a section, continuing to think things out before you put it down. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. Like I said, I'm actually going to leave those on the document that you guys have, so you won't have to do those 3 boxes. You will just have to do the other 6 boxes. And you can just look at those as kind of a model for how to do each section correctly. All right. I think that that is all that I've got for you guys. So when I sign off, go ahead and pull up the branches of government comparison chart and read through Discovery Ed 4.2 tabs 2 through 4 and do the best you can. All right. See you guys.